Holy Back to the Future, Batman! Tiki here, and welcome to the show where Batman the Animated Historian, BlueDragonFive, takes silly old me, who's never watched Batman the Animated Series, through my experience and first time watching every single episode of this highly acclaimed landmark achievement in animation.
Yeah, you see, folks, long ago I made a vow to educate Tiki in the ways of Batman the Animated Series. You could say, serving as his spirit guide to Gotham in a way.
And tonight we're talking about Season 1, Episode 25, The Clock King. Oh boy. Okay, Dragon, so this is an episode of Batman the Animated Series that has been on my radar for quite a while now. Almost kind of dates back to the origins of you and I kind of hooking up on YouTube and doing stuff together. So, Dragon, I believe if this isn't Captain Logan's favorite episode of Batman the Animated Series, he at least speaks very, very highly of it.
He does speak often. He loves Clock King to pieces. I mean, there's a lot to love with Clock King. I'm a big fan myself of Clock King.
So coming into it, Dragon, I had the Logan factor going on, and no, not Logan, the 2017 movie.
Dun, 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 dun. Anyway.
But yeah, I had kind of like the Captain Logan like hype train going for this, and I gotta say, Dragon, after watching the episode, I definitely understand the hype for it, and I really love this villain's motivation and the origin for this villain. Having said that, by the end of the episode, when it gets into the final fight with Batman and, and saving the mayor and everything, it kind of becomes a little bit more of a standard episode of Batman. But I love the motivation, Dragon. The motivation is what really sticks in my mind, the origin story and everything. Can't wait to talk about it. And I'm sure that that's kind of like the big selling point of this episode for a lot of people is just how, this is almost kind of like a reinvention of the Joker in a much more silly capacity with the whole one bad day thing.
Yeah.
So, all right. So let's get into it with a little bit of background, Dragon.
Sure. But you also got to remember with Clock King, the thing Clock King, he's used very sparingly in other media. So I mean, when he shows up, it's usually because again, this is like a huge. This is like kind of the go-to Clock King for a lot of people because before this, you only had really only two other versions of Clock King. You had the 60s version, and you had the version in the comics, which the Brave and the Bold did, where it's the guy in the silly clock costume. And, down the line, when he's popped up very sparingly, because technically he's not a Batman villain. He's a Green Arrow villain. And then when he finally showed up on Arrow, which delights Captain Logan.
Oh, I'm sure it did, yeah.
And actually he's kind of questions, which one he likes better, the animated series version or the Arrow version. The Arrow version's really good, I gotta admit. But the point is, he's very sparing. A little more on that later. Anyway, so the director of this episode is Kevin Altieri, known director extraordinaire. He's done episodes like Feet of Clay Part 2 with the TMS animation. And On Leather Wings, the very first foray into Batman the Animated Series. This episode was written by David Wise. David Wise, he didn't write a lot of episodes, but he did write some memorable ones. He did the first Riddler episode, which we'll get to at some point. If you're so
Riddler-esque in a way, I can see the connection.
Definitely feels like a go-to guy for that. He has some good plotted episodes. So he has If You're So Smart, Why Aren't You Rich, which is a Riddler episode, the first Riddler episode. And the other one he actually adapted a comic story. He adapted the Hugo Strange story, The Strange Secret of Bruce Wayne. Which is the age-old story of Hugo Strange finding out who Batman is. That's the classic where that story comes from. The animation studio on this is one of my personal favorites. Short of Spectrum. It's Sunrise. Sunrise has a really good, consistent Batman. The ones that we've seen them do already, they did Pretty Poison, the first Poison Ivy episode, and the one I'm kind of building up to is they did one of my age-old favorites. They did I Am the Night when we get to it down the line. So Sunrise, have a very You can very much tell the animation style when you see Sunrise. It's like they have there's always like a drain color palette somehow in Sunrise, but it doesn't really bother you because it's Gotham,
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. So again, Clock King originally, of course, is Green Arrow villain. They went back to his. They really went to his fastidious roots with this one. They didn't make him like just kind of the guy running around the clocks with a clock. The costume was he wore a giant clock head. That was the original Clock King costume, which Brave and the Bold lovingly does, by the way. I'm just saying, if they give him like a German accent, like the German or the Swiss clockmaker he runs around like on guard, with like clocks. It's ridiculous, but cool. The Arrow show had a really good version played by Robert Knepner. He has like a KN sort of thing. Knepner, sorry. Whoever that, he was Teabag in Prison Break. He was the main bad guy from Prison Break, and he played an excellent Clock King. The point is a very fastidious, precise character. That's what the Clock King is. And there was the William. On the page, you had the William Tachman version. Here we get Temple Fugit, which was either a very underutilized one in the comic, or if I'm remembering correctly, I want to say Temple Fugit was just their reinvention here, which they then put into the comic. They did it here first, then they added that into the comic as like an alternate version of Clock King.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's very again, the Temple Fugit version that we had before us in this episode is a very cool Batman-specific version, which leads to the age-old Clock King misconception, because everyone loves the Clock King from Batman the Animated Series without realizing, again, because they grew up like myself, and they realize, wait a minute, he's a Green Arrow villain? There's just like this old version, like looking like a giant walking clock, and now, I identify personally with Clock King for a couple of reasons here. I just want to get that out of the way here. Is that one, on a show that Tiki and I enjoy very much, so we promote whenever we can, Super Academy.
Oh, yes. Oh, God, yes.
A production of Hot Chocolate Media.
HotChocolateMedia.net.
.com's our scam, folks. .net.
Dragon, by the way, just a plug for them, because they've been doing something that I've been kind of following along with.
Sure, plug away.
Kyle Decker has been doing a blog about he's committed to watching one movie per day every day this year.
Yeah.
And so the whole thing is that he's discovering new favorites. He's he's kind of going back to some of his old favorites. It's a whole pool of stuff. I believe one of the newest ones he's going to review is the remake of Josie and the Pussycats, the live action remake. So yeah, check that out. HotChocolateMedia.net.
All right. Anyway, so on that show, I want to take too much credit because just kind of pulling ideas, and I threw a suggestion in there. The character that eventually there's a character creation live stream, and they pulled the audience and kind of asked for pitches for characters, and I pitched a character called Fracture. And Fracture, in my head, just kind of based on the guy, is basically someone who was like a very, very intelligent, very smart character who could see the weaknesses in other characters, essentially see the world in like fracture points.
Mm-hmm.
And what they drew, and again, they were very in tune with what I had in mind. It always amazes me that the end result was exactly what I was thinking of in my mind without giving it specifically away. It was Clock King from Batman the Animated Series. And you see... And you see Fracture, and he looks very much like basically Clock King without the hat. That's essentially what Fracture is.
Suave version of Clock King.
Yes, and but yeah, you see exactly. I mean, you've seen it, Tiki. Do you see the Clock King kind of similarities there?
Sure.
Especially with the glasses. The cracked glasses are directly a reference to like.
By the way, the glasses are like my single favorite thing about his design.
And again, amazingly, I didn't pitch that, but they had that. Again, they knew exactly.
No, I'm saying that not just with Fracture. I mean, I like the glasses on Fracture too. I'm just saying I love the the clock glasses on Clock King in animated series.
Certainly. Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, again, there's such a great costume on the Clock King that, again, how do you not factor some of that awesomeness into a character similar to him in Fracture? So I always got a little bit of personal investment in Clock King, but I also identify with Clock King's origin here. I mean, I've had some time related trauma.
I can definitely identify with his origin as well.
I had a time related trauma in my past that definitely brought me back to the origin of the Clock King. Also, Alan Rackins, he does the voice of Clock King, and amazingly, throughout this whole thing, I had to double check as I was getting paranoid. Alan Rackins, he sounds like if they ever did a modern day version, like a remake of this, they'd have to get Alan Rackins because he sounds just like Billy DeWolf from Frosty the Snowman. He's like Professor Hinkle, the magician from Frosty the Snowman. He sounds identical to him.
I'd have to go back and rewatch and compare.
You know, busy, busy, busy. You children never know what you're talking. Yeah, so it sounds very much like Alan Rackins. Anyway, so great voice, and let's just dive right into it. That's pretty much all the context I think we need. So let's just dive right into it.
Okay, so first of all, Dragon, I imagine a '90s era Hans Zimmer listening to the score of this episode, and it's like, wait a minute, the ticking of a clock being the main theme. That's a great idea. I don't know what project I can use that on, but I'm just going to file that in the back of my mind.
Yep. Let's see.
Seriously, though, one of the things that I've really appreciated kind of as a novice of Batman the Animated Series, of course, just sort of picking up on all this stuff, all this minutia of great sort of quality, is every villain kind of has his own theme music, and that's very much at play with Clock King.
Absolutely. So we start the episode. Temple Fugit boards a subway, very dissatisfied with the delay. I love that his first line in the episode, knowing that his name is going to be Clock King.
It's Back to the Future Part 2 timeline. Which is a great tagline, by the way, Dragon. Great tagline. It's about time.
It's about time. Of course, it's like the voice and the design and the voice is encapsulates the most pedantic, anal retentive guy ever, and that's perfect for the Clock King. I just love the voice, love everything about Temple Fugit, even before he's Clock King. It's like you know that character, you see, okay, this guy would be perfect for Clock King.
Mm-hmm.
So then he goes about his day. He's boarding the subway, very common, kind of a daily thing, and he makes small talk with Mayor Hill, who of course is voiced by. He's lawyer here. He's Lloyd Bachner does the voice of Art Bachner's father, by the way. Lloyd Bachner is the voice of Mayor Hill. In this case, Hamilton Hill, attorney at law. So yeah, the idea is this is 7 year. The reason I specify that is because this is 7 years. They've been doing this routine as Fugit points out. Just Fugit, there you are. Well, actually, no. I think Fugit he kind of addresses him and says, "Hello, Mayor. How are you? Hello, Hill. How are you doing?" And he says, "Oh, do I?" It's like he almost doesn't even recognize him, and he points out that we've been taking the same tray for a year, 7 months, and 13 days. So they've known each other for that long and used the same train every day. This he has not noticed, and this is 7 years in the past.
And the train is always 6 minutes behind schedule, which is going to be important.
Oh yeah, and they don't really expressly say it, but he isn't. He says, "Oh yes, you're the efficiency expert," which implies that I guess businesses contact Temple Fugit because he has a company, and most likely he's contracted by other businesses to, kind of run efficiency and run numbers on him. That's how he kind of supplements his income, I suppose. That's how he has the money for a business to get sued.
Yeah, so he's very stressed out about a current case he's on. If they
$20 million lawsuit.
Yeah, if they lose the case, then they're going to lose everything, essentially.
Yep, and we see him typing out a schedule down to the minute with the. You'll see increasingly as he speaks about it. That's when the schedule gets down to the minute. So it's like it says, okay, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and then beyond that, it's just like 3:05, 3:10. It's getting down to every 5 minutes. So it's the more stressed out he gets, the more down to the second he gets almost.
Yeah, and Hill's kind of pointing out, look, buddy, if the judge sees you looking all intense like this, he's definitely going to think you're guilty. So, what you want to do, you want to loosen up a little bit before you go into court.
Yeah, and again, it's out of a place. It is out of a place of helping here. Hill's just recommending,
he's literally just making small talk, Dragon. That's the great thing about this.
And again, it's just the point of Fugit initiated, and he's being polite, honestly.
Right.
Take your coffee at When do you take your coffee? 3 o'clock sharp. 3 o'clock exactly. He says, "Well, take your coffee at 3:15." This is great. And I love Tiki. This is great. I don't know if you notice this.
My schedule.
What's so great about this, and the animation's so wonderful here, is that they're using their space so well. And rarely do you see this in animation all over, is when they use the subway setting where you have all these ambient sound effects of like going through the subway, and it punctuates, like it's almost like a glass cracking when he says 3:15. We cut over the to Fugit, and he's trembling at the thought as he says that, and you hear like you hear like the dramatic subway music essentially. Just wigs out, just wigs out at it. My schedule. So Fugit is chewing out his staff. Meanwhile, so he's taking the advice to heart, and we're seeing him kind of process it.
37 pagers would take the copier 1 minute and 39 seconds.
His assistant comes in and brings him his coffee and the documents he requested. He needs to look over for the court case today. And then we hear Hill's advice echo.
I love how he asked the secretary to put the coffee in a furnace, and the secretary is like acting like that's the end of the world. Like she knows how bad of an idea this is.
Yep, and by the way, it's funny. Her name is Miss Perkins. A little bit of they are Psycho fans, the Batman the Animated Series staff. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's like a little bit of a Hitchcock nod right there. Wouldn't be surprised by it. So we're at the park, and essentially, folks, we're laying the foundation for a one bad day.
He's very uncomfortable.
Yeah, and it's kind of great. And so yeah, you're right. He's very initially uncomfortable. So we're at the park, and he kind of sits down. There are kids playing in the background, and it seemed for a moment, seemingly all is calm, all is quiet. He exhales. So for a moment, he does what Hill said. He relaxes. He unwinds. In the second. Again, I love that it's for a character like the Clock King. I love that we nail it down to the second. The minute he does that, he's hit with a ball.
I gotta say, these kids are like super rude.
Oh yeah.
Like they're the ones that threw the ball, and then they're just like mocking him, like, "Oh, he got hit by a ball. Oh, what a loser." And
this is the moment where he's like, he kind of chews him out, like, "You little brats." He sounds,
you know what? If I was in that situation, I'd call them little brats too, Dragon. I'm completely on this guy's side.
Well, when he does that, I'm saying that moment there, that's when he sounds most like Professor Hinkle from Frosty right there, and just yelling at kids. Anyway, so then here's where the one bad day kicks in, folks. And if your heart, and my heart goes out for him, it really does. So the wind blows his papers away, and he's chasing after them frantically, and the last paper's in the fountain. And then there's this. I love it's such a happy-go-lucky dog. Happy-go-lucky dog just screws with him here. Just goes up right behind him and barks, and it drenches him as he falls into the fountain. Then we have the big. Oh god! And then Tiki, this is the thing I've seen in my nightmares here. This is like this this moment here takes me back to my time-related traumas right here. Where it's shot like a horror movie, and it's great because again he walks in there, it's like all dark. We just build to this great ending shot here, but it's like this horror movie reveal as we push in on the judge. And again, I love we enter the courtroom through Fugit's POV, and it's great. Initially, Fugit is a no-show as the ruling is about to be carried out, which means by default he loses. So then, the ruling's made, he enters, and we have that heavy clock ticks right here. So this is where Hans Zimmer is getting the kick out of this right here, where the clock is ticking like slower and slower, like more powerful each tick in the scene. Again, it's like the gavel, like the executioner's blade coming down to him almost, which again is going to be kind of again. Yeah, let's just say foreshadowing in a vague way later on. Perhaps, and he says, "But please, he's begging. And again, his lawyer's like shrugging him off, like, I'll tell you." And when the judge says something, and this is my trauma right here. What the judge says to him here has happened to me once, and it ruined me.
Oh dear.
Perhaps you should. Perhaps this will teach you to be on time for a change. That scream that when he turns and Fugit screams, just again the clock is like dwindling down there. Like no. Oh boy,
Dragon. The trick is to always just show up 5 minutes early.
I'm going to pretend you didn't say that anyway.
No, I don't know. I'm just saying that's what I've learned with my work schedule. You know, just always show up 5 minutes. I'm not trying to chastise you. I'm just giving the good listener some advice. You know, if you feel like you're consummately running late, just give yourself an extra 5 minutes. Just be like, all right, you know what? I'm not gonna want to show up at 9 o'clock. I want to show up at 8:55, and therefore, if you show up at 8:55, then you're golden. Anyways.
That's the positive. That's the positive advice, folks. That's very appreciated. That's very necessary. Let me give you the scarred for life advice here. Never be late, ever. That's the traumatized. That's the traumatized. Anyway, so 7 years later. So again, what we have with that whole thing there again, it's one bad day, to the extreme. It's kind of it's a very exaggerated version of one bad day. It's almost like Joker would love this would love this episode.
Oh, he would. He really would.
In the regard of it would be like a bad joke to it'd be like it would be the best bad joke ever of just like, oh my god, this one guy's late and he becomes a supervillain because like Joker would laugh at the absurdity of this. And it's great. So, because time is very important here, it's 8:57 a.m. 7 years later. Want to take us through some of this?
Yeah, so let's see. So Mayor Hill and then Alfred and Bruce Wayne are both kind of stuck in a traffic jam.
Like Alfred has some great lines in this episode.
Dragon, it always warms my heart. It's like a simple thing, but I love when Alfred is very much concerned about Bruce eating enough.
Yep. Oh yeah. So let's see, Alfred. He's asking Bruce if he's sure he doesn't want if he doesn't want breakfast. Then he says the fundraiser. Alfred warns Bruce that the fundraisers. Oh, sorry, I wish you would have some breakfast because the meals that they serve at these fundraisers are ghastly. And Bruce, again, this is wonderful here. Bruce exposits that it's basically he exposits that there's a re-election campaign going on. That's what the fundraisers for. It's a re-election campaign for Mayor Hill, and it wouldn't it wouldn't be in the best interest to poison the contributors. And then Alfred has the great line: If you were in a hurry to get the food all prepared, he would be ahead of us. Pretty fine. The minute he says that, then of course there's a crash that goes on.
And then, of course, we see Clock King looking at the scene from above.
I love Alfred's. He's chewing the taxi driver out for him again. Alfred in a traffic jam is something funny.
So I guess taxi drivers are no longer required to obey traffic signals.
I was just Bruce poking his head out here and just kind of mediating the situation.
Yeah, I like that too. That was a nice little moment. Like, hey, look, neither of your fault. It's the light.
Yeah. Then Hill's looking really bad here, and I like that. Alfred, this doesn't bode well for his campaign here. It's like, yeah, nothing works here with Hill.
Mayor over the hill.
Yep, Mayor over the hill. It's looking very, very bad. Bruce, this is a great moment. I love these types of moments here where Bruce. He catches on to this being orchestrated. So this all feels very orchestrated. He looks up, and I love how ominous and menacing this is, and so it feels very Hitchcockian. It's he looks up in the last minute, the detonator. We see like the shocking reveal of him with his well-trained eyes there. He sees all the way up there and says, "Okay, a detonator's been pulled out," which means, oh god, chaos. Some bad's about to happen. Pushed. It's too late. The minute he sees it's too late, click. And we reveal the "Time for a Change" banner. Basically, it's a graffiti re-elect Mayor Hill billboard, but it's defaced, make him look really silly.
So Bruce then kind of rushes to the top of the tower. He has a very quick costume change into Batman, Dragon. I like that.
Yeah, it's a very Fleischer Superman moment. These are the kinds of changes that he'd do all the time, and you can definitely see the influence of that. In the
we get our first good look at Clock King. Like I said, I'm loving his eyes, Dragon. I'm loving the motif they do with his eyes.
Yeah, he's got the glasses, the cane, which is essentially it's a minute hand, and he's got a really nice pocket watch, which he also has watches that turn into bolas, like exploding bolas.
It's a great classy way to do the concept of the Clock King, but not have him be that over the top. Like, hey, look, my whole body is a clock. Ah.
Yeah, but again, it has like the clocks worked in very naturally. It just shows, and visually, what that design does to you is it shows you that he's a, he's a human guy, but he wears his fixation on his sleeve without wearing it as a mask or anything. Because again, he's accepted like this is who I am. I'm very I'm very time obsessed. I'm very time ruined my life, and I got
Right.
And basically, again, like he just got swept up, and if he was already if he was time aware, now he's time obsessed, and that's just a great way of showing he's like drenched himself in it.
Mm-hmm.
So he's very, and I love. He's so cocky. It's so funny. He's very very cocky. He's a very cocky, civil-minded citizen with a lot
I'm
of
just
time.
a civic-minded citizen with a lot of time on my hands.
Yep, a lot of time on my hands. Then he throws the exploding watch at the Transformer, I think. Batman, which leads to Batman's interrogation, like, "Who are you?" And we get what he gives him in tow, and he's kind of avoiding Batman using his very well timed movements here. And this is great. It's a wonderful introduction to Clock King here, right before Batman get anywhere in this interrogation. I'll tell you this: the 9:15 train is always 6 minutes early. And he basically kind of backflip. He doesn't even backflip. He just kind of he leans. He kind of sits back on a ledge and he falls. Batman rushes over and we reveal that he's on the train that ran 6 minutes early, so he got away. Mm-hmm. Let's see. So Batman and Alfred, interestingly, and I love this in the episode. I don't think we see Bruce winning. I think it's all. I love that he's.
I love how the episode Alfred is just freaking straight up Batman's personal chauffeur. Like we don't see the Batmobile, but Alfred's there.
It's different than what we usually do, and I love it. Just out Batman, and it looks so off, but so wonderfully off. The Batman and Alfred, they go to the Gotham Department of Traffic. Sorry, the Gotham Department of Traffic Systems. Mm-hmm. He grapples away as Alfred remarks, "This is one of the finest back alleys of Gotham." Of course, like a rat just kind of crawls over the car as he says this. Again, Alfred has to wait in the back. Poor Alfred has to wait in the back alleys while Batman's doing his stuff here.
Which is a great kind of real-world detail of this episode.
Yep.
All right. So let's see. So Batman's wearing some sort of like infrared goggles, right?
He's wearing the infrared visor, like Cyclops, the infrared visor.
Yeah, and he finds a time bomb.
Yep, he finds the clock remnants of the destroyed Transformer. He just blew up the rooftop in the aero scene. This is the Transformer I was thinking of. So he he threw another one of those exploding pocket watches into the Transformer, which caused the traffic system to be on the fritz, so that he's kind of timed and worked into his plans there. So basically using the zoom feature on the infrared visor, he zooms in, he discovers that it's a $6,000 Metronex watch. As an explosive. Again, Fugit's only going to use the most precise clock for everything.
Mm-hmm.
Which leads to a very good question. Hey, it's a man with a lot of money and a good jewelry store. So they track the serial numbers using, of course, every high-end watch definitely has a serial number, which you can track to a jewelry store, which gives them a name, Temple Fugit. Which, by the way, Temple Fugit, it comes from the term Tempus Fugit, which means time flies. A little fun fact.
Nice.
That's how they come up with that. Let's see. So then they go to 362 Brayfogle, and Brayfogle is a reference to a really wonderful Batman artist who, unfortunately, he's alive, but he suffered a stroke, which he had to retire from drawing. But the last thing he did was a wonderful Batman Beyond story. It was great. It was he and Adam Beecham did a really great Batman story. And he's the guy best known for doing the eye slits on Batman. That was his big claim to fame.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. So, by all means, take us through some of this.
Let's say, honestly, some of the details of the detective stuff in this episode kind of, I didn't really pick up on exactly what was going on, but let's see. He's they're at a crumbling building. He's pulling the side. The crumbling. It's a watch company building, right?
Yeah, the Time All Watch sign we see, basically he's in a really tattered neighborhood.
Yeah, so he pulls, I love that he pulls the sign aside to kind of reveal the staircase leading down into Dragon. I have written down in my notes, it's a clock collection that would make Geppetto and Dr. Manhattan, proud of their boy.
Yep.
So just imagine Clock King as Geppetto and Dr. Manhattan's illegitimate love child.
That's a stretch for the Predator boy, Tiki. I'm going to tell you. Out of all
okay, you know what? Take Geppetto out of it. Dr. Manhattan would be very proud.
Or Doc Brown, because Doc Brown collects a lot of clocks.
All right, fair enough.
Anyway,
I'm just saying Geppetto has like the really cool collection of cuckoo clocks.
True. So we're in the clock-filled lair, and we have some great Batman cape shots. By the way, I just wanted to point that out. We have some great shots. Going on here.
A Dialect Mayor Hill poster.
Yep. We find Batman finds, again, good detective work here. Batman finds the subway station plans, like there's a lot of those out, and he observes through this. Okay, Fugate's got an obsession with the clock tower, with the clock tower. Again, very similar to Back to the Future.
Yes, you're right. It is very Back to the Future-esque.
I love that Alfred.
There's another late '80s movie pool that this episode reminds me of that we'll get into.
Sure. Alfred, he's I love it. Alfred being proactive and helpful here, where he's listening on the policeman while he's in the car.
Right.
So let's see. So basically, they learned that there was a blackout between Shift and Robinson. Of course, Jerry Robinson, the creator of one of the co-creators of the Joker, artist extraordinary again for Batman. In the corner of there, and they realize that there's a bank. There's a mutual Gotham Mutual. Gotham Mutual branch, or Gotham Mutual Bank is there, and they remember. There are time locks there. So the idea is he's blacked out that whole block, so that bank will be open, and the time locks again. Time, get it? Clocking time locks.
And I love the moment where Alfred and Batman come to the same realization in unison.
Yeah,
they're both like Fugate.
Yeah. Again, I like that we're using time without it being over the top, and even if it does, like it kind of owns it, where it's like it's a bank with an ulterior motive, but it's a bank that has, again, the time locks make no difference, just it's an electronic lock, but the fact you work in time locks to make it specific, it's nice. So we see the bank. You see, basically, the bank has been hit by knockout gas. Batman enters with the gas mask. I haven't seen him really use that since maybe since Last Laugh. The whole Joker laughing kind of garbage episode.
Right.
I don't mean that was a bad episode. I'm saying there was a lot of garbage in that episode. Anyway, literally. So we find Batman goes inside the vault and he finds a lockbox with a tape on it, with a cassette tape on it, and we learn that is. We learned that it's armed, and the vault shuts. The vault shuts, and the tape plays. Batman plays the tape, and the box is a vacuum. The box is equipped with a vacuum pump, which means sucking the air out of the room. In 15 minutes, there will be no air left for Batman.
This is a great kind of like elaborate modern day death trap here.
It is, and again, this is why the clock
plays on the time thing. And
this is the wonderful thing about the clock, and what I love about him most. I love that he doesn't have to be the best physical fighter. He just has to be he's timed things so wonderfully, and he's so smart. It's terrifying.
You know what it kind of reminds me of? He almost kind of has like a Bill Murray Groundhog Day quality to him.
You're right. Yeah, he does have kind of
so on point with exactly when stuff is going to go down that he like uses it to his advantage.
You're right. It is kind of like what if Bill Murray became what if Phil Connors became a bad guy? Yeah. So again, he's figured out Batman to a T here. He knows he has multiple gas masks, so that's why he just used knockout gas. And again, he's put him in a vault where again he's only got a certain amount of air, and the box, if he tampers with it, will explode. Mm-hmm. So and again, this is what's clever. This is what's scary clever about the clocking here, and I love this. This is where he's just getting off kind of. He's vaguely a sadist here with time. Is that he says it would take you 17, and I love this because I love he knows the gadgets like. It would take you 17 minutes to burn through the door with your oxyacetylene torch.
Yeah, he's done his homework for sure.
But yeah, I love the fact that he has 15 minutes left. It's only 2 minutes. He's going to kill Batman by 2 minutes. That's what's so twisted about that. Just by 2 minutes.
Uh-huh.
So he says again, if you open the housing If you open the housing, it will explode. But if you want to, do that, that's fine by me. And he was just these annoying Batman, and we see, okay, so Batman is definitely in trouble.
But he springs to action. He starts unpulling tape from the cassette, which definitely leads somewhere.
Certainly. So again, he has Batman's number. What's so great about this plan too is this whole thing. It's not about killing Batman. It's just he has Batman's number, and he's using it to get Batman out of his way. For the real plot at hand that he has for Hill. And Batman's bringing the cassette tape. Meanwhile, getting to that big plot, Hill unveils his. It's kind of cool. Like with Hill, he just wants to humiliate Hill. Then he wants to ultimately, get his ultimate revenge on Hill. So Hill unveils the new safe and efficient subway line.
Isn't it the Gotham Central Station?
I believe so.
Yeah.
And it's late, much to his.
Of course, the first train is late.
Okay,
right, meanwhile, we cut back to Batman, who's running out of oxygen. He passes out.
And clock's ticking. He rigs a pulley system with the tape. So basically, he's gonna tamper with it so it explodes. But he's gonna make sure he's like behind like a barricade. And he's getting it right up to the door. And again, like he has a minute and 25 seconds on the clock. And Batman passes out after pulling it toward the vault. So again, he's so close. So again, Batman's getting kind of woozy.
All right, so meanwhile, we cut back to the mayor, and Clock King's just over the intercom kind of tormenting him, just like, Hill wanted a train there at 2:30 on the dot, and is this what you want, a mayor who can't even get a single subway train to arrive on time?
And I love this, though, that, again, Clock King isn't out to really hurt anyone else. He says, he warns the people to clear the platform. He only gives one warning, though, so he's not super... he's not super worried about him, but he's like, okay, I don't want anyone to get hurt aside from Hill, so everyone's clear the platform. They all flee as the train wrecks.
And this very much reminded me, Drag, did you ever do the earthquake ride at Universal Studios?
Yes, I did.
Remember the moment where the train derails on you?
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, kind of like that.
Yeah, very much like that. So in the aftermath, so again, let's see. So the train wrecks. The trains go off the tracks. It's it's shifting very erratically. It's going all over the place. It leads to an awesome crash, a very well animated crash. And in the aftermath, Jim Gordon, of course, kind of a traditional kind of sparing Gordon rules here. Gordon shows up. He says, "Hill, where's Hill?"
Yeah, I like that the cop, reports to Gordon, like, only minor injuries, thank God.
Yeah, that's good. Batman, meanwhile...
Batman triggers an explosion with the Batarang, and he stumbles out of the vault.
15 seconds on the clock. He did it just by the skin of his teeth there. Good for Batman.
And he sees a news report that Mayor Hill has vanished, kidnapping is suspected. And so we go to the clock tower, because where else would the Clock King be holding it? Oh, shoot. Yeah.
You there? Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm saying you cut out for a moment, but I can hear you.
Oh, yeah, well, regardless, he goes to the clock tower, because where else would the Clock King be holding Mayor Hill? The symbolism.
Yep, I just want to point out how well plotted all of this is. Again, it goes by like that. It goes by like a snap, and it's like Batman. The minute he emerges from the vault, there's a newscast going that's telling him what's going on. We transition through like the clock tower tolls, which kind of gives him like a light bulb moment there.
Mm-hmm.
So we have the ultimate Clock King death trap and revenge plot, and this is beautiful. This is what Joker would laugh his head off about. This is like the bad day philosophy, but told as a joke. Where Hill is tied. It feels very Dick Sprang. Feels very like giant props. Just very like
Mm-hmm.
Hill is tied to the hour. Again, it's big props, but in a natural setting where you would have big props like that. I think it fits so well there. Where Hill is tied to the hour hand and the minute hand, like the Grim Reaper's axe. Like we felt in the earlier scene, the minute hand is going to travel down and crush him. Like time is literally going to, again, we all battle time. Time is going to kill Hill. And of course, what's so perfect about
Hill? Does that have any meaning to you?
He has no idea. You remember, and this is where Joker's laughing his head over here. He says, You told me to take my coffee break at 3:15.
Like I said, Dragon, it just tickles me how simple that motivation is.
Again, it sounds like it just sounds like Joker is giving a ridiculous exploit, an absurdist version of One Bad Day. And again, the fact that while again this man is so brilliant, he has timed things so exactly. He's dedicated 7 years of his life becoming the Clock King, and all of it for one reason: to humiliate and kill Mayor Hill, because, as he wonderfully says, "You made me late." I guess that's the punchline. That's where Joker's busting that gut right there.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Why are you doing this? And of course the line that Hill has, "Oh my lord," and it all comes back to him. Look, I swear, all I wanted to do was help. And Fugit's not buying it. You're playing. He's deluded, but you get where he's coming from there. Again, it's a deluded man. He says, the plaintiffs are represented by your law firm, Hill. And the minute he says that, we have this great lightning shot behind him. It was like, oh god, Doom is about to sweep Mayor Hill. I had nothing to do with that case. That again, it's a crazy thing about this revenge, but it's so scary, it's so crazy, it's so silly, it's so scary. And you have an appointment to keep with the Grim Reaper. Again, all the time stuff. It's just really well written dialogue there with all the time stuff. So he turns and it's Batman. And Tiki, what's Batman's line?
I'm here to clean your clock, Fugit.
It's such a perfect, yet again, it's like a serious 60s Batman retort, but if the 60s Batman was all about if he was more about relishing and beating up the bad guys,
right. And then of course Clock King comes back with, when it comes to clock, I am king.
And again, it's such a 60s concept, but again, it's played so straight and so deadpan. They're out 60ing the 60s Batman. It's wonderful.
And then Dragon, Batman gives chase into Fugit as Fugit leads Batman right into the finale of The Great Mouse Detective.
Now, in addition to that, Tiki, there's another animated reference to this. While it is referencing, there is a bit of Great Mouse Detective, but the main
source, very much Great Mouse Detective, Dragon. Let's not make heads or tails out of it.
That's true, but there's actually I forget if it's older. I forget if it predates Mouse Detective, but it's
well, this Mouse Detective was definitely before them.
I know that I'm talking about the other thing. It's the main source of inspiration was a Miyazaki movie. It was the Castle of Cagliostro.
Oh yeah. That definitely has some gear seat set pieces as well. I can see that.
That was the main influence, and there is definitely a Great Mouse Detective vibe. It's a question.
It's just Great Mouse Detective. It's literally in a clock tower,
Certainly. I'm just saying. I think that was happy accident, because again, there are a lot of fun happy accidents that do happen in animation. Also, there is one animation error that I'm just saying. If it was any villain but the Clock King, I'd let it slide. But it's just, you have to point out, on the exterior, they screwed up one of the Roman numerals.
Oh God.
11. I'm just saying, an episode that's so pivotal about this clock tower.
Maybe that was intentional. Maybe it was a thematic detail.
Maybe. I don't know. But overseas they might have screwed that one up. I don't know, because it is bound to happen. Anyway, so they're beginning to to kind of advance each other here, and I love that Fugit is fencing with his minute hand cane. He's a very proper fencer too.
He didn't commit a crime, but he made me late.
He made me late. So Batman falls, and he's hanging by 6 o'clock, and they climb into the window. Now we're inside the clock tower. Now it's where the rest of it is. There are gears all over the place. It's Clock King's domain. What's so wonderful about this? Now we're on Fugit's territory, which puts Batman in danger, and I love that. Let's see. So yes, Hill committed no crime. He did worse. He made me late. Sorry, I was reading through the notes again. I love that line. Yeah. Anyway, so yes, he said this shows that Temple Fugit is more crazed than he's almost sympathetic like Victor Fries, but he's just too crazy. Where Victor Fries is completely sympathetic. Where Clock King is just, you get where he's coming from, but he's off his rocker and how he's executing things.
Sure.
it's again, it's as I mentioned, it's almost like I guess here's the analogy I have of kind of building up here is it's almost if Joker. What if the Joker wrote Heart of Ice?
Uh-huh.
If this like clocking is the Joker's version of Heart of Ice, basically something sympathetic but with a punchline.
Uh-huh.
So let's see. So Batman, he works his way to essentially what he's doing throughout this fight. Is he's trying to work his way to save Hill, but clocking keeps him, kind of engaging him in battle to distract him because he wants Hill dead. So let's see. You got a lot of clocks and gears and cogs going on here. Clocking uses his clock bolas on Batman to try to wrap him up. Let's see. So clocking just needs to stall here. So his main plan is again very clock related thing. He just needs to stall him.
Of course, of course.
And here's where we get one of the greatest things about the clocking. He studied the old news footage of Batman, so he knows like the time it takes for Batman to throw a punch.
I love how Batman is like impressed by that as well.
Yes, I mean he knows the timing of all Batman's moves down to, and this is wonderful. He knows the timing of the moves down to 1/20th of a second. That's awesome.
But it only takes me 1/30th of a second to do this.
It's great here. Basically, he dodges. He dodges one of the Clock King's strikes. So, and this is such a great metaphor for the Clock King. He gets the minute hand stuck in the gear, and it stops his clock, and it brings everything down around him. Well, it begins to bring everything down around him.
Uh-huh.
And the thing with clocking, I just want to mention like how precise he is and why I think clocking is such a great villain. He has so much potential. Honestly, is that clocking is a villain with that 1/20th of a second thing. See how precise he is. He's someone I could absolutely believe could find out who Batman is just by timing, like how much time it would take for someone to become Batman. Like,
oh yeah, definitely.
Like the appearances. All he needs is like one thing, security camera footage to gauge who's in the approximate area and see how much time it would take him to go from one place to the other.
Also, I forget exactly where it comes up, but there's a great bit where he times the subway out too, and he jumps on the subway.
Well, that was the earlier scene we went through. It was when he basically sat backwards and he like the 9:15 always comes 6 minutes early.
Right. Yeah.
So let's see. So so Batman. Oh, this was great how he saves Hill here. Well, I'm sorry, we're jumping ahead a little. Let's see. So, stops the clock. The tower builds up, essentially. It's like a water pipe almost. Like it builds up, and the reverberations start to make the tower collapse. And this is a great set piece, by the way, in the collapsing tower. So Batman tells Fugit, "There's no escape, Fugit." And I love that Batman tries to save him. But and clocking has a wonderful. He's so well written this episode. I like this episode better than when they bring him back down the line. Is that when Fugit says here, "You of all people should know, there's always a way out." And what's so great about that line, Tiki, is it's a callback to the bank vault because he's surprised, he's impressed with Batman that he got out of the bank vault. So that's him calling him on that, like, "Hey, you weren't supposed to leave that bank vault, but you got out anyway. I can do the same."
Mm-hmm.
We get a laugh there, and he seemingly is killed by the falling cogs. And Batman's really destroyed.
I like how ambiguous it is, though.
Yeah, it's a perfect ending for the clocking if it was his last one. But thankfully, they keep it ambiguous. And again, that whole I love how Batman's like yelling "Fugit" because again he feels oh my god, they couldn't save him.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Batman leaps to save Hill. It's great. He leaps here and with a mid-throw a batarang and a bat rope. So he leaps out the window. He saves a falling Hill all at the same time. It's great. He saves him there. Yippee, hooray! And then we have a wonderful little capper here to everything. Perfect little capper to everything with Batman.
Of course, it's a Batman and Gordon scene, so you gotta love that.
Oh yeah, man, this is another one I remember well because it's such an unusual location. Like off to the side, there's like a tree behind them.
Right, yeah. It's like in the daytime too, which is different.
Yeah. So Jim, so let's see. I love the staging. This is what I love about these Batman Gordon scenes. So I love that Jim knows that Batman's behind him, so he's not turning around. He's not really turning around to face him. He's just kind of staring forward, like he doesn't attract attention. And again, Batman's in shadow here, and it looks great when they do this because they always have like the black on blacks in terms of like how they paint the scenes. So Batman blends in a lot when they do this. So he says, he's not. Well, I don't think the mayor's going to be campaigning for a while, but he's safe. There's no sign of the clocking, and we have that great. And here we have great framing from Sunrise. Again, Sunrise did great framing on this scene. This is like like Gordon's face is in the camera essentially, and Batman's like right over his shoulder, and we kind of reverse that shot a couple times. It's great. Gordon in the foreground, Batman in the background. Gordon ponders, how could anyone survive that? And Batman says, I wouldn't be surprised to hear from him again. I'd say it's only a matter of time.
Batman made it funny.
But seriously, it's kind of a good ominous line of like, a guy that smart, he's bound to come back.
Yeah, and I like how throughout the episode, Batman by no means underestimates Clock King. He is very much aware of how much of a formidable foe this guy is, in spite of his kind of like, geeky, meek outward appearance.
And that's the thing. This episode is a lesson for Batman not to underestimate his bad guys, as he sees like one man with a very simple revenge motive, but he's had time to plan that revenge motive. This episode is one that inspires Batman. Again, Batman is caught off guard. He's almost killed legitimately in this episode, in that bank vault. And it's showing that Batman, he can never just, be complacent. He can never be comfortable. He's always got to, be smarter than the other guy.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so final thoughts, Dragon. I will admit this movie, or not this movie, this this episode kind of lays victim to me a little bit of kind of like the overhype train, where it's like as I said, I love the motivation behind this episode. The motivation and the backstory and everything is just, it's on point. It's sublime. It's so good. I love all the character stuff with the Clock King. The one thing that'll kind of it's not bad by any stretch, but like I said, I think by the time we get to the end of the episode, it's just it's kind of gone from like a really unique episode to more just like, all right, Batman's got to save this guy. There's a big set piece action scene. Let's go, So it's definitely a solid episode. It's I wouldn't put it in my top 5 of the stuff we've seen so far or anything like that. It's I wouldn't call it a personal favorite, although I do very much like it. It's one of my favorite backstories. I'll say that much. It definitely has a lot of good motivation behind it. But yeah, overall, it's a really solid entry. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Didn't quite live up to the Captain Logan hype, but that's really nobody's fault but my own. And of course, we all hate when that happens with certain things. So.
Right.
All right.
So for me, it was a great. Clock King is a great and memorable villain, and this episode kind of defines that character's history. Again, he's looked to when people say Clock King, they're not thinking of the older version of that. Well, that's again still it's a vaguely valid version. It's not as cool as this version, and honestly, you get kind of a middle ground when we kind of adapt him again. We try to reinvent him down the line, with Arrow, and I don't like the version it's in the Arrow comics. They revamped them for another time there. Again, it's point is, I think this is always like the gold standard of like what you want to do with the Clock King. It's the guy who they bring him back in Justice League. In Justice League, they do him just right there because that's he works with the Suicide Squad. And Clock King is a character who worked perfectly with the Suicide Squad in that he's the guy planning the jobs.
I can totally see that, yeah.
That's what they do, and that's in the original comics, that's where essentially if I'm remembering, the comics, again, like all before like the New 52 and such, is that they killed the Clock King off working for the Suicide Squad. As you know, happens to the Suicide Squad. A lot of them get their heads blown up. So,
not hardly knew ye.
Yeah, so Clock King always he fits a great mold, and he's always just filled with boundless potential, and he's always a delight when he shows up, and he's a character I wish would show up more. There's always so many only so much time parables you can draw from him between him and Batman. Again, Batman's life changed at a very specific time because a lot of times in the comics, like to get into the Batcave, Batman has to go to the grandfather clock, and he turns the hands to the very minute when his parents died to 10:47 or 10:48, depending. Whatever time his parents died. See, it's a point. Time is definitely something you could definitely draw parables with Batman. So again, this is a good episode. I think it's nicely plotted. I got a lot of enjoyment for it. But again, I think mostly it's for the creation of the character. It's a good wonder for Clock King, and we kind of complicate that when we do more with them. But it's nice when he shows up. Okay.
All right, give us some Dozier.
Yeah. A bomb in Crime Alley. The model of destruction, or Roland Daggett showing off. Will Daggett face the hammers of justice? Can Batman save the day, or will tragedy strike Crime Alley again? Find out. Same animated bat time, same animated bat place.
With an appointment in Crime Alley next time on the Animated Batcave. You made me late.
You made me late.